G5 jet. I'm on my way to a brand new kit.
Welcome back. Holy smokes, I am late. Had this scheduled for like an hour ago, but as soon as I was about to go live, what do you know? The Galaxy S23 leaks. So I had to get some overlays adjusted. I had to get some information ready for y'all. Obviously, right? So we've seen what the S23 Ultra looks like, but we have not seen what the S23 and S23 Plus look like. Now, they're essentially the same model, right? So just one's bigger than the other. You got the the current S24 and S24 Plus. They look identical. One's just bigger than the other. Same thing with the S23. So you're going to get the S23 and S23 Plus. They're going to look the same. One's just going to be bigger than the other, right? So we got that for you today. I only had one topic to talk about today, which we'll get into. And then before I go live, what do you know? And then not only do we have the S23, and we'll get into that because I have some theories. We also have the Apple timeout. Not the one you're thinking about. We have the Apple iPhone 17 Air. We have our first mock-ups of the iPhone 17 Air. It's breathtaking, right? And I don't say that. Look, I'm very careful. I give Apple credit when credit's due. Y'all know that. I just don't particularly like their business practices or their operating system. I say that knowing I'm going to buy one tomorrow. But it's for the channel. It's not for me. It's for the channel, right? I promise. Hand on the Bible, if I didn't have this channel, I would not be getting one. But I'm going to do it for the channel so we can compare Android, iPhone, not only phone to phone, hardware to hardware, software to software, apps to apps, all that stuff. So you are able to purchase them tomorrow morning if you're interested. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and 8 a.m. East, if you're on the East Coast, Eastern Standard Time, 6 a.m. Mountain Time. So, if you're interested in getting one, you can get one at apple.com. And actually, I was on apple.com, what was it, last night? You can actually, so if you have a T-Mobile account or Verizon, I think, okay, so here are the 4 carriers you can upgrade on Apple. You can go through Apple. You can finance it through Apple. And then you can also choose, they partnered with T-Mobile. They partnered with Boost Mobile. They partnered with Verizon and AT&T. So you can actually, if you have a plan with T-Mobile, right, like I do, you can actually go complete the whole process on apple.com, or you can go through tmobile.com, right? So, or verizon.com, whatever you want to do is there for you, right? I think the new sand, what is it, the titanium, what is it called, titanium sand or something like that, I guarantee you is going to go quick. Probably going to be back ordered before you know it. You know, these Apple people are crazy. They're going to be staying up all night. Sort of like I would be, right? Like, let's say the Nothing Phone 3 comes out in starting at, I don't know, it's coming out next year. Say like January 25th, right? You can buy them at 7 a.m., right? Or 6 a.m. I'd probably stay up all night, honestly. But I'm not doing that for iPhone. So when I get up tomorrow, whatever, I don't know, my lazy ass probably get up around 9. I'll order one. I'm not. It is what it is. So I think I'm gonna get the white 16 Pro, 256. If you're interested, you can order them tomorrow morning. Right now, you can actually walk into a store and buy them. Physically buy one in a store, whether it be the Apple Store, T-Mobile, AT&T, on September 20th. So tomorrow, Friday, you can purchase them online. They'll start shipping them out, I think, on like Monday or Tuesday. So if you do order one, you'll probably get it, I don't know, Wednesday, Thursday. And then Friday is when you can physically walk into a store and purchase one. Interested to get this camera comparison kicked off. Been enjoying my Pixel lately. And my God, are these... This Pixel is freaking badass, man. Again, it's not... Oh, we do have a good... I'm all over the place. Big camera comparisons with Pixel 9 Pro XL and iPhone 16 Pro. Obviously, benchmark testing. Pixel CPU does not even come close to the Apple Bionic A18 Pro CPU. We all know that. So I'll probably do it for shits and giggles just to put something out there, but it's going to be a huge difference. Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which is in the S24 Plus. We'll do benchmarking tests with that. And then apparently next month when the OnePlus 13 comes out. Now, nothing's been official, but literally as each day goes on, it looks like the OnePlus 13 is gonna launch late October. So it looks like Pixel moved up their launch date, right, to August 13th. Apple's got theirs on September 13th, and then it looks like OnePlus is going to bump up their launch date for their OnePlus 13 in Google's old launch date in their old launch slot, which is always typically late October. That will come with the brand new Snapdragon 8 Gen 4. Now, I say that because that's going to be the biggest comparison, and that actually leads our news for today. But before we get into the headline news, I want to mention, if you catch this podcast late, if you're watching and you got to miss a segment or two, or you got to skip out for some information, or you possibly see something you want a little more info on, you can always go back. So catch the replay on our eSIM Studios YouTube channel. I'm streaming this across a bunch of different platforms. So wherever you're watching this, if you want more information, or you simply want to catch us live every day, go to eSIM Studios YouTube channel. We live stream there every day. That's our home base, right? And then also, you can take us on the go. We're on every single podcast. I'm not going to say 100% because there's a lot of podcast apps out there. We're on all the major apps, right? So majority of them, probably 95%. So we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on Amazon Music, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio app, wherever you get your podcast, audio podcast. Type in eSIM Studios Podcast and we'll pop up. Now, let's get into this, right? So that's what leads the news of the day. Snapdragon 8 Gen 4, so the new A18 Bionic CPU from Apple is going to officially hit the streets, I guess, next week whenever they start shipping them out, because they typically ship them out a day or two, consumers will normally get them a day or two before official launch date. Which it would be the 20th of September, which is the same thing for Samsung, right? Samsung does that. Typically, their official launch date is on a Friday, but they'll start shipping theirs out on a Monday. Like, I've gotten mine. I think the earliest I've gotten a phone is like a Tuesday or Wednesday. We got the Pixel Pro XL a little early. The S24 is a little early. Even got my Nothing phones a little early. So we'll have that for a good month, and then the Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 devices are hitting the streets. Very excited for that. So let's get into this Snapdragon 8 Gen 4. So the test results are in. Been waiting for these test results for a few good months, honestly. I knew this was going to be a good performer. I've heard some rumblings, some rumors behind the scenes nothing but good news, right? Just how strong it is. It's a very, very strong performer in benchmarking tests. I've heard that it does not overheat. I've heard that it clocks over 4 gigahertz, which is surprising because when you hear how strong it is, how powerful it is, that it's gonna beat this new Apple A18 Bionic chip. But then you hear it's really power efficient, right? It doesn't overheat, although it's cranking out it's clocking over 4 gigahertz. You know, when you mix all that in, it's kind of uncharted territories in the Android world, right? So for years, 10, 12 years, actually, since cell phones were born, up until this point right now, there has not been an Android device or a non-Apple mobile CPU that's put in a cell phone, right? So anything other than an iPhone, there's nothing that's been put in an Android device that's been able to benchmark and or score higher on benchmark tests than an Apple iPhone. The Bionic chip has always been the holy grail of mobile CPUs. Now, I'm not talking about the M4, because technically the M4 is a mobile CPU because it's inside an iPad, right? But I'm talking about phones, mobile phones. This was supposed to be the first year Snapdragon put something out to the consumer that actually performs better than what Apple has to offer, right? So this is a groundbreaking moment, and from what I see in test results, which I'm going to show you, I have been skeptical. It's one of those things where I think I'm going to have to see it to believe it, honestly. Sorry, I have to upload the results. So I have the results here. Let me do this. Let me open up. I have it to where it'll be smack dab in front of my face, but let me do this on the fly. I do apologize. Let me do this. So what I'm going to do is move it over to the left real quick. Now, this same Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 that I'm about to show you, the test results, and you're going to want to see these. Same Snapdragon that's going to come in this OnePlus 13. It's going to be in all of the Samsung Galaxy S23 devices worldwide. I think we announced that maybe last week that there's no more Exynos versions. Here we go. I got it. Sorry guys. Sorry for the delay. Which is a good thing, right? Universal CPU is good for these devices. I personally don't think it's a good idea to have half the world have a Snapdragon, half the world have Exynos. This Snapdragon CPU looks like it's so good that you cannot put it in the new Samsung Galaxy S23 devices. So do you want to see the results? Let's go. Now, maybe hard to see. So, but you can tell, right? So I'm going to have this linked. I have an article here on the site. I'm going to link an article below in the description box below where you'll be able to see this a little bigger, right? So what we have here, top left, OnePlus. Now, this is the model number. So technically, this is the OnePlus 13 here on the left side. Snapdragon 8 Gen 4. And then you have, it says iPhone 17, 2. That's not the 17. That's an iPhone 16 Pro. But that has the Apple Bionic A18 Pro CPU. So the Apple Bionic A18 that's in the new Apple iPhone 16 Pro, I know a lot of terms and numbers here, barely beat the 8 Gen 4 Snapdragon in single core performance. So single core iPhone 16 Pro scored a 3409. Now, the single-core performance for the OnePlus 13 with the 8 Gen 4 performed and scored 3216, right? So just under 200 points. The Apple Bionic A18 beats the Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 in single-core performance. However, the more important test, in my opinion, because you can argue both ways. You can argue single-core is better. You can argue multi-core is better. I personally believe multi-core is better, right? Because that's when you really got your phone going. So what's the difference, right? Single-core means, obviously, this is what it scored, and it runs all. If you're not familiar with the benchmarking test, if you can run one right now. This is not some like developer-only test that we do. This can be performed on any phone, Android or iPhone. Anybody can do it. It's on the App Store. Go to Geekbench, and download it and benchmark your phone, right? So it takes you to a whole bunch of graphics tests. Depending on, 3D Mark, there's a whole bunch of them. Depending on which test you choose, some can take a few minutes, some can take 20 minutes, right? Geekbench typically does it, I think, in 4 to 5 minutes, something like that. Single core means just one core, right? A lot of these new CPUs are octa-core, which means 8 cores. So a single core test means they're just running this test on one of these cores, not in 7 are basically resting. Multi-core means all 8 of them running on all 8 cylinders. That's a more, in my opinion, real-world test, especially in my world, because I'm a heavy multitasker, so I got a bunch of stuff going on. Now, I don't game, which is kind of ironic because I'm so entrenched in these benchmark scores, and I know it's not the end-all be-all. I got to say that every time because it seems like every time I do one of these videos, somebody always blasts me for, it doesn't, it's not the end-all be-all, it doesn't describe how well the device performs. I mean, technically it does, but, I get all sorts of comments, so I get it. But again, and I always go back to the comparison. If you want to buy a sports car, if you're going to go buy a Corvette, right? What's besides the price in the engine, which is the same thing with the phone, right? You want to know the price and what's powering it. What CPU does it have? What's the next? What's the third and most important stat that they show you right after the price and like what engine it's got in it? It's a 0 to 60 time. It's the quarter mile, right? So this is basically the same thing. The single core is like a 0 to 60, and the multi-core is like a quarter mile, where the 0 to 60, the single core performance, is like basically right out the gate, or just its base standards, because you're running out on one core. Multi-core, the quarter mile of benchmarking, is when you got everything cranking and you're just maxing that shit out to the max, right? Same thing. Even though you're not going to drive that Corvette, you're not at every red light. When it turns green, you're not going to floor it. Every stop sign, every red light turning green. But you want to know what it can do, right? If you need it to go fast. Same thing here. So the Snapdragon 8 Gen 4, sorry for that long explanation. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 in the OnePlus 13 beats the Apple Bionic A18 with a multi-core score of 10,051 points, and the Apple A18 Pro Bionic chip scores 8492. So you can tell high performance when there's heavy load. It performs wonderfully. So we'll just have to see. And I know they can overclock them from benchmarking tests, and then when they push them to consumers, they'll underclock it. I know that, but that's another reason why. Well, if you look at it this way, so what if they did overclock it? If you overclock both, and OnePlus and the 8 Gen 4 still beats it when both are overclocked. Now, that's one of the reasons why we're going to get an iPhone, is to do this real world test. So we'll have everything in-house, and test all this stuff out here. Got some other stats underneath it, RAM, blah, 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 blah. But I think we already know what all this stuff is coming with. So this is the most important score right here. I guess I should have displayed that first, right? So there you go. A18 Snapdragon 8 Gen 4. Let me delete that one. First look. Results are in. Another one. I'll get the hang of it. I'm trying to do a news-based tech stream. So trying something new. So bear with me. Now, this Snapdragon 8 Gen 4, as I mentioned, going to be in this new OnePlus 13, right? That's coming out in late October. It's also, as I mentioned, going to be in the new Samsung Galaxy S25 series. Now, we've seen what the S25 Ultra looks like, right? So last week, there's a bunch of pictures that have been leaked, and I think we covered it for a few days last week. Well, now we got a first-hand look at the S25 and S25 Plus. And I keep on telling y'all, every time you see a leak come out like this, it's for a reason, right? So, I was once told by a professor, leaks come out because somebody wants them to get out, right? Whether it's international news, whether it's coming from the White House, whether it's coming from Turkey, from Australia, whether it's coming from a presidential candidate, whether it's coming from Samsung, right? They get out because somebody wants them to get out, right? And make no mistake about it, with this launch of the iPhone, remember I made you aware of this when the Pixel was being launched. I think that's when we got S25 Ultra leaks and OnePlus 13 leaks, is when the Pixel was launched last month. Now that we have the iPhone 16 launch right around the corner, you see what I'm talking about? So these just leaked, and it's not a coincidence. So Samsung's hanging that carrot. They're trying to salvage as many of you as they can. They want you to look at these leaks. They didn't leak them to me. Samsung's not paying me. I'm just simply presenting to you what's in the tech news of the day. Samsung is basically waving a carrot in front of people that are on the fence, whether do I want an iPhone or do I want the new Galaxy? Oh crap, ooh, I like that. Oh, is that the new S25 Plus? Oh wow. Stuff like that, right? They want to say, hey, don't forget about us. This is going to be coming out soon. Everybody gets all worked up about these stupid iPhone launches, including Samsung, including Google. Look, they made Google bumped up their launch date to be in front of iPhone. OnePlus is bumping up their launch date to hurry up and get this. They're under pressure by Qualcomm to hurry up and get this OnePlus 13 out so they can have an 8 Gen 4 on these streets. And don't be surprised if Samsung, I find it, they launched their device. They even bumped up their release of the S24 series last year by 2 weeks, but still they bumped it forward. But I'm not so sure. I think Samsung might even bump the release of this S25 series up even more. Now they're going to be pushing it up against New Year's, because I think they had their Samsung Unpacked event for the S24. Was it on January? I can go back and look, but it was like beginning of January. It was like the second week of January, right after the holidays. People get back from vacations and stuff. It was like January 11th, I think. Don't be surprised if they bump theirs forward. Now, you can't do it the week of the New Year's. Too much going on. People have too much going on and they're too distracted. You can't do it the week before that because that's Christmas. Too many people got too much going on. People getting distracted. So you would have to, if you were going to do it, you would have to do it before Christmas, right? So kind of like mid-December at the latest. I would say early December. And you can't do it any earlier than early December because then you have Thanksgiving. So you're going to have to, I wouldn't be surprised if we get an announcement that they're going to do theirs early December. Everybody's moving their shit forward. Everybody's moving their launches forward. Even Xiaomi, who traditionally has come out with the very latest Snapdragon 8 generation 8 series. Xiaomi's typically always been the very first Android phone with the brand new Snapdragon CPU, always. And this year OnePlus is gonna do it. And Xiaomi even bumped up their launch date. So this Apple iPhone launch ruffles a lot of feathers. Now, we'll get into this. Trust me, I'm saving the best for last. We're going to save this iPhone 17 Air first to look last. Trust me. It may be the biggest news of the day, but I'm saving that for last. Now, let me show you what some of these other photos look like. You can say, yeah, it looks similar. It does, but let me show you what's different on this S24 series, because I did some pretty deep studying on this thing, and I think I found out what the difference is. Because on first look, it does look pretty similar, right? Check this out. Let me share this page. Share. Let me hide this. All right. Where y'all? Are y'all there? Here we go. So here's the S25 and 25 Plus. Here's what it looks like, right? I think I have that on the I had that on the clip I was showing you. Here's what it looks like from the back. So let me show you these pictures and then what was probably going to be different. So what's going to be different is, for one thing, two things that I can tell right off the bat that are different. Or three things. The selfie camera up top in the middle. Damn, that's small. I wish I could make it bigger. The selfie camera in the middle there looks a little bit smaller. A little bit smaller. Could be wrong, but to me it does. I look at phones all day. The bezel. Now, I showed another leak that I think was... It essentially had zero bezel. I think these are going to be more accurate. I think the one I'm showing you now is going to be what it's going to look like. I think the ones that I presented to you last week that had essentially zero bezel. I'm talking about the little black strip that's on the outside of the display on the right side on the phone that's on the right. You can't have no bezel. And I think this one's a little more accurate. I think this is the one we're going to see. The one I previously shown was a little more rounded around the corners, but that's not it. So we got the selfie camera's a little smaller. The bezel seems reduced a little bit. iPhone's doing that this year as well. If you're getting an iPhone, wait till you see it. Wait till it's in your hand. They massively reduced the bezels on this iPhone 16 series. Actually has the thinnest bezel of any smartphone ever. That'll get beaten by OnePlus or this next Samsung device. But the main difference, look at the cameras. So the cameras there now sort of resemble the Z Fold 6 cameras, not the Flip 6, with the flip phone with these little chrome bezels around each sensor. You see mine how does it shine in the light? You see how these sensors on the back have a chrome border around them, silver border? Well, this new S25 model is just going to be blacked out camera. So it's just going to have a blacked out camera right there. No bezels, no borders around each individual sensor. It's just going to be blacked out. That's the only thing I can really tell. Basically, it looks the same. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I've been using this for the last week to 10 days. I freaking love it. I love it. Phenomenal device. So it just, as long as they don't stay on this design for like 7 years like Apple is doing with the iPhone, if they hang around one more year, I'll be okay. And then I'm like, all right, it's time to change it up. Apple can get away with it to a certain extent, but Samsung, Pixel, OnePlus, they can if they find a good design, because this is a good design. Is it boring? Maybe. I like it, but you'll see them start changing their design language probably, I don't know, after next year. So they'll be stuck on this for the 25, this similar design for the S25, possibly S26. Now, after that, they're going to radically change it. I was under the assumption things were going to change on the S26. Now I'm not so sure, but it's going to be at least one more year looking like this. But again, not a bad thing. But if you want something different, get a OnePlus. I don't know. Speaking of design change, let's get into this main story. Speaking of design change. Sorry, I get excited when I see cool tech like this. Check this out. I'm excited because I don't get excited for iPhone stuff. And the design of this is incredible. So Apple, obviously, new iPhone 16 series, right? Pre-order starts tomorrow. We talked about it in the intro. You can buy them in stores on September the 20th. iPhone 16 series. Yes, you can get excited for that. I know a lot of people are, but it does get some pushback because it essentially looks like every other iPhone, right? It looks like this. Every other iPhone looks like this or like this, right? Now, they've been on this for what? Since the 12, 11? At least with the 2 on the back, right? So, with this was from the 10, basically, right? With the cameras, and then the Pros, they started adding a third camera, right? So we're going back 6 generations. They will have this design for 6 generations. So if they bring you the same design, what do they try to add different, right? How do they try to pull you in to buy one? Hardware inside, right? Not outside, not exterior, but interior. Cameras, software features, blah, 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 blah. If that doesn't move you, if that doesn't push you enough to go buy a new iPhone 16, then my suggestion to you, wait one more year. Just one more year, because Apple is radically changing the design of its iPhone. So, the Air, quote-unquote Air line, they have the MacBook Air. They have the iPad Air, which is a slimmer, lighter version of the MacBook Air. Smaller, lighter, slimmer. Then they have the iPad Air, thinner, little smaller, lighter. Well, they're going to introduce the same Air name and moniker to the iPhone. So they're going to introduce an iPhone 17 Air. This has been in the works for what I've been told for at least 3 years. I didn't hear of it until about a year ago and was very skeptical, but I've been keeping a close eye on this for, like I said, basically the last year, but really the last 6 months when these rumors, every month you'd hear something about it or a leak would come out, and never really when you read what they're designing, when you read it, it's almost too good to be true. Today we get our first look. Today we have our first renders of the iPhone 17 Air, and it's incredible. Let me go ahead and show it to you, and then I'll tell you maybe how this is even possible, right? So check this out. That's insane. That is insane. So you have iPhone 15 Pro Max on the left, and you have iPhone 17 Air on the right. And then up top, you got the iPhone 17 Air, looking at it horizontally, diagonally, whatever you want to call it, from the side, right? So apparently, this new iPhone 17 Air is going to be 4 millimeters thick. 4 millimeters thick. Thinner than a number 2 pencil. Damn it. I should have grabbed a ruler here to show you how, you can see how thin that is, right? So 4 millimeters, just to give you a really, really quick reference, and it may be hard to see where you're at, but I can't wait till these mock-ups come out. You know how sometimes they have dummy units or dummy phones, or sometimes you'll see, like the phones that they sell in the store. I'm going to be scouring eBay to see if I can get my hands on one of these early mock-ups units. So this phone is S24 Plus. This phone is about 8 millimeters thick, right? And you see how thin this is. That's 8 millimeters. So this new iPhone 17 Air is going to be half of this thickness. So if you see where that charging port is, that's basically half of the thickness of the phone, or that speaker there where my fingers are. So if you cut the phone sideways, if you cut the phone this way in half, right along where the speaker is, right along where the charging port is, that's how thin this new iPhone is going to be. We're talking razor thin. I like to call it an engineering marvel. Probably not the definition of an engineering marvel. I'm just a nerd that gets excited. And look, guys, I know I've said this before. I dislike Apple a lot, but I can't help but get excited about cool stuff like this. I just can't. Right? I can't. It's amazing. Now, eventually, you'll see Samsung. Eventually, you'll see Pixel, right? This thin, but that's probably years away. Because here's what Apple did. Apple patented this process. Apple made sure, just like these drug companies, when a drug company comes up with a phenomenal medication, sorry, allergies here are bad. What they do is they'll come up with this drug, they'll come up with this formulation, and once they goes through trials and it gets approved by the FDA, they'll apply for a patent, right? And a medical patent is different from a design patent, but it's same premises, right? So, and I'm not sure if it's the same length, but I know for medicine it's 7 years. So if a drug company like Ozempic or whatever, they have a patent on Ozempic, whoever makes it, Lilly, or whatever drug company, they'll file for a patent. So for 7 years, nobody can make a generic or a similar drug like the one they patented. Same principle with this technology. So I can look it up, but whatever. 7 years is a long freaking time, even if it's 5 years. So this is what Apple did. Apple came up with this fantastic way, and I know it's been thought of before, but nobody's actually done it. And this is how they get these phones so thin. So they're basically cramming in. If you've ever opened up a phone, and this is an old school phone. Look, old LG. I think I've shown this before. LG, what is it, the G4? And this is an old school phone. But they cram these components in here. And, everything's jam-packed, right? Layer on layer on layer of parts. Now, what Apple's doing is they're taking everything that's in that iPhone 15 Pro Max you see there on the left. They're cramming that into something half the width. So how do they do that, right? So this is what Apple patented. They came up with this design and they patented it. So patented it? Anyways. And I'll look into that when we get offline. But what they did was, so in these phones, you have a motherboard, right? Just like a gaming PC. You got a motherboard, a slab of plastic with integrated circuits or whatever. Motherboard, CPU, GPU, RAM, SSD, vibration motor, speaker, battery on top of that, and then the CPU is soldered on top of the motherboard. The RAM soldered on top of the motherboard. The SSD in these phones soldered on top of the motherboard. What Apple did was they, instead of it being layered, motherboard, CPU, battery, whatever, wireless charger, Apple integrated all of these parts that are on top of the motherboard. What they did is integrated it into the motherboard. So it's one flat plane. And it's not layered on top, part on part. Apple layered everything inside the motherboard, which makes it a pain in the ass to repair. I guarantee you, it's unrepairable. I guarantee you. And it's so thin that they're not going to be able to put in a periscope lens in the cameras. Periscope lenses are very layered and actually take up quite a bit of depth. That's why this Pixel sits, this camera hump on this Pixel. That's why this camera hump right here is so thick. Let me move my fat head. See how far this camera hump sits right here? See how much space that takes up off that, and that's off the back of the phone. That's because it has to make room for that periscope lens. Well, it's unless they come up with another way to cram a periscope or reduce the size of a periscope lens, the 17 Air is going to be missing the periscope lens, but they'll be putting all sorts of other ultra wides in there and stuff. It'll be fine. But I say that because if they have this new way of manufacturing this motherboard with everything integrated into a motherboard into one plane, it's going to be a long time until you see Android phones getting this thin. I think they could get close to it, but not 4 millimeters thick. Like you'll slowly see, I think the S25 Ultra is supposed to be 8.2 millimeters thick. And the S20 Ultra was 8.7 millimeters thick. So you can tell every year they shave about 0.1 millimeters off. But Apple just freaking cut the whole phone in half in 1 year, right? So at this rate, it's going to take a few years for an Android device to get this thin, or at least catch up to something similar looking, right? But an absolute incredible feat of design and technology. And I hate to give Apple credit, but damn it, if I hated on Apple for this, or I did not cover this, I wouldn't be doing my technology channel any justice. Like, as much as I dislike Apple, I would be lying to you, straight up lying to you, if I said this wasn't cool, or if I just started hating on this. Oh, it's going to be a piece of shit. Whatever you can think of in your head that you can hate on this for, I would be lying to you if I tried to hate on this. As much as I want to, I can't. This is freaking cool, and I can't wait to use one. So I'll definitely cover this as time goes on. Again, we're about a year away. So, but at least we know they're working on it. At least we know it's given a green light. And heads up, this is the last year Apple's going to be offering the Plus model. So there's the 16, 16 Plus, 16 Pro, 16 Pro Max. They're going to replace, so this iPhone 17 Air is going to take the place of the Plus model. So next year there's going to be no Plus. So it'll be iPhone 17, iPhone 17 Air, iPhone 17 Pro, and iPhone 17 Pro Max. Now, the only razor thin phone is going to be the Air. The 17, 17 Pro, 17 Pro Max are going to be regular size, meaning like this. And it's still going to have, get this, the cameras on the back are different. So that's where their design change takes off. So the 17s, all the regular 17s are going to have this cameras. The 17 Air is going to have cameras across the back, right? Kind of looking like a Nexus 6P. If you don't remember what that looks like, Google Nexus 6P, Google image, search that, and it'll, not exactly, but something like that. So this year will be the last year for the Plus. Actually, their Plus is the least selling iPhone out of the four. So they don't sell as many Pluses, meaning, when did they introduce the Plus? In the 15, 13 Plus, 14, I think 14 Plus, I think. Yeah, 14 Plus. So the 14 Plus sold the worst out of all the other 14s. 15 Plus sold the worst out of, meaning least amount of units compared to the regular 15 or 15 Pro or 15 Pro Max. So very strategic move by Apple, saying, we've got this really cool tech, this really cool technology that we want to introduce to the market. I think it's a strategic move to not only eliminate a model that's not performing well, nobody cares about the Plus, remove that model and replace that with a model where when everybody sees this, their heads are going to explode. Imagine holding this in your hand, razor thin. It's going to be insane. Now, of course, structural integrity has to be in question. Jerry rig everything. When he gets his hands on it, when he does his durability test, and he takes the phone, bends it like that, bends it like that, it's gonna snap. I mean, I don't know. Look, I'm sure their engineers have thought of this inside and out. It probably has. Look, it's gonna cost the arm and a leg too. So you're talking about probably at least start out at $2,000. So I'm sure it has titanium in there. Who knows? I'm sure it has to cross every engineer's mind when they're designing these, is in structural integrity. I mean, you remember what was it, the Flex Gate? Was it Bend Gate or Flex Gate? Do y'all remember that? Where it was the iPhone 6S, where a lot of people like myself, I put my phone in my back pocket. I don't even put it in my front. I'll put it in my back pocket, and then you go to sit down in your car, right? Well, I think it was 6S. A lot of people's, now I didn't have the iPhone, but I remember this happening to a lot of people. Back pocket, you go to sit down in your car and you don't take it out. You just go sit down. Nowadays, I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with this in my back pocket. Nothing happens. But iPhone had an issue. Apple had an issue with structural integrity. People were putting these iPhones in the back pocket. And they go and sit down in a car or in a desk chair, but typically in their car. They go to sit down, still in your back pocket, and what do you know? Bends. And then you get screen separation. So that's around the time where I used to work repairing phones and stuff. Right around that time, like between Blackberries were still around, right? It's not like I repaired phones like last month. I did for a few years, and that's when Blackberries were getting phased out. I remember seeing a Blackberry. Why you still got that? But yeah, bend gate is a real thing. So I'm sure they've thought of this. I'm sure they've done tons and tons and tons and tons of testing. And look, they're going to put something out. We'll have to wait and see how it performs. Let me see if I have any other pictures of this. Yeah, this thing looks so dope. Let me show you what the back cameras might possibly look like. Bear with me just for a second. Okay, y'all ready? So I have a couple photos here that I'll show you. Actually, I need to add this to the site. Here's the best depiction of what the cameras are going to look like. Now, I told you it's a radical design change, and the back side is no different. So, how do I enlarge this? Here we go. Y'all ready? Let me move this, and let me bring this. So you see there, back of the iPhone. And get this stupid ass ad out of the way. God, there's so many ads. Look at this right here. Look at this right here. So the camera is not how it normally is, right? And remember, the other 17 models, the other iPhone 17 models will look like the iPhone that's being released tomorrow. Looks like the iPhone that's in your pocket. This is going to be the only one that's going to have a radical design change. Now, moving forward, when you go into iPhone 18 is when they're introducing the iPhone Flip. Yes, they're going to bring a flip phone to the market. So you'll see that iPhone 18. And then 19, you're going to start seeing a bunch of different radical changes design-wise. So if you like the way your iPhone looks right now, and you just like this classic design, you're probably going to want to upgrade and hold on to it, because I think this, not only this year, next year will be the last year you'll see the typical classic iPhone look. After iPhone 17 Air, after iPhone 18, they're changing drastically what these look like. So yeah, you'll get the iPhone 17 Air, and then you'll get the iPhone 18 Flip, and then they're gonna do a bunch of cool stuff. So we'll have to see how I hold up, because I hate using iOS. I hate it. I think it's stupid. Doesn't make sense to me. I personally think Android is way easier to use. That's just me. Now, stay tuned to the channel, because we're going to get a 16 Pro in, and we're going to do all the comparisons. Benchmarking, cameras, battery tests, charging tests, all sorts of stuff. So I do appreciate you stopping by. Please subscribe to the channel, eSIM Studios YouTube channel, and eSIM Studios podcast across all podcast platforms. across the world. Tomorrow we will go live earlier, and I want to know if you upgraded, right? I want to know, did you upgrade to an iPhone? I'm sure I'll probably get a lot of no's from my crowd, and I get it, right? Again, if I didn't have this YouTube channel, I wouldn't be upgrading either, but to an iPhone. But it is what it is, right? So I'm gonna roll. I appreciate you joining us. Tomorrow, I don't know what time we're gonna go live, but I will put a community post out. So whenever I wake up, I'll roll my ass out of bed, probably see what Apple and T-Mobile have to offer, and then we'll go live probably around noon. I'm going to shoot for noon Central Standard Time, but we'll see. Stay tuned. eSIM Studios YouTube channel, eSIM Studios Podcast. And my name is Taylor Bell. I do appreciate it. Please have a safe and enjoyable Thursday evening. Good football tonight, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace out.